Imagine you just had the best pizza you've ever tasted. Imagine it was in Orlando and that the person who made it for you was a guy named Bruno. Welcome to the Orlando Real Estate Lifestyle Podcast, where we explore the intersection of Orlando real estate and your best life. I'm Phil Kruse, here to help you make the most out of your journey in the City Beautiful. Today, I'll be interviewing Bruno Zacchini. Bruno is the founder and owner of Pizza Bruno. For me, the best pizza joint in Orlando. Bruno is more than just a pizza guy. His background includes formal culinary training, his famous food cart, Big Bruno Bites, you might know it, where he got his start, stints at multiple highly respected restaurants, and even ties to a family circus act. Pizza Bruno currently has 2 locations, with the third opening in Maitland and should be opening this July. Maybe when you're listening to this episode, it's already open. Bruno, welcome to the Orlando Real Estate Lifestyle, and thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. I'm glad to be able to do this.
So am I. I really respect your time. For the listener, really quick, after this episode, if you want to check out what Bruno has going on, you can jump on his website, pizzabruno.fl.com. Make sure you throw the Florida in there, the FL. Also, his IG handle is at official Pizza Bruno. You can just search IG. There's underscores in between those. I want to highlight some of his lunch specials too that he's got going on at the Curry Ford location. Salad and a pizza, any salad, any pizza for only $18 during the week. He's got other lunch special deals at the College Park location, which if you don't even know is his newest location, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And he's also revamping the wine program at the Curry Ford location. So sometime soon you can go in there and have some even better wine, better experience. And lastly, don't forget that Bruno does catering. Bruno, you guys bring your pizza oven out sometimes, right?
Yeah, that's our main catering program. It's a full service catering where we roll out our wood-fired oven and we cook from anywhere from 25 people up to 500. So yeah, anything you want, we got.
Amazing. And so I'll put that in the episode description so you can click on the link, click on Spotify, Apple, look at this description at the bottom, and you'll see these different links, including to his catering services. And while you're there, you're going to see my contact information. My cell phone is right there in the episode description. I'm an open book. Text me, call me anytime. I am a real estate agent. And one of my main lead sources are listeners like you. But when it's your time to make a real estate decision, think of me, Phil Kruse with a K, Kruse. I'm all over social media, of course, at _Phil Kruse. Again, Kruse with a K. I am philkruse.com. And a portion of all of my charities, a portion of all of my commissions goes to a charity of your choosing. If you don't have a charity that you are passionate about or even know about, you can donate it to the charity I'm affiliated with, the New Image Youth Center. They're supporting underprivileged youth from the Paramore region of downtown Orlando after school programs and summer programs, field trips, enrichment programs. I mentor there. I'm actually going to start teaching an improv class there, believe it or not. So if you work with me, your dollars and cents will go towards that commission or go towards that charity. Okay. Well, let's get Bruno back in here. Bruno, as I mentioned, Bruno, you are more than just a pizza guy. There's a common misconception that you were born in New Jersey. You're actually a Florida native. You're born in Sarasota. And what's even more interesting is that you were essentially born into a family that has major circus tie background. So a lot of people probably don't know this about you. So tell me a little bit about your circus family.
So yeah, I was born in Sarasota, Florida, Sarasota Memorial Hospital. I was in New Jersey 2 months after that, though. So I do have, youth of there.
Right.
But my family is the famous Flying Zacchinis. That's my grandfather, who I'm named after. I'm Bruno the Third. So Bruno Senior, this is my father's side. So Bruno Senior and his 7 brothers had the famous Flying Zacchinis Act, which was brought over by John Ringling in, I think, 1929, 1930. He saw them in Copenhagen, Denmark, said, I got to have these guys. Brought them over, started shooting them out of cannons in Yankee Stadium and Atlantic City and all over the country. So that's my grandfather on that side. And then my grandmother on that side, my nonna, Germana, her family was a famous bareback horse riding troupe. So They were on horses doing crazy acrobatics and stuff like that. And collectively, though, the whole family, both sides, everybody's an acrobat, a performer, a clown, a dancer. I mean, it's just showmen's everywhere, show women. It was cool. It was definitely a colorful upbringing. It was always exciting, and there was always it was always boisterous, I guess you could say. My wife always is like, "You're so loud." I'm like, "You don't understand. Like the house I grew up in, it was just like you had to be big or you gotta, you weren't seen." So yeah, and I just grew up with them. I was lucky enough to live with them until they passed, because when I was born, it always like dawns on me now that being 42 years old, I was born and my grandfather was 82 years old. I'm like, this guy had lived two of my lives before I showed up. And he was there until I was about 10. He passed in 1993. So he lived to 93 years old. But I lived with them. And, I just got to hang out. And I wish I was a little bit older when they were around to ask more questions. But, it was an awesome experience and, really, really cool stuff.
Were you ever old enough to participate? Did you ever act as a clown? Did you ever do any acrobatics?
So actually, by the time I was around, my family was basically entirely out of the circus, except some other extended families. So I had cousins that were still doing circus stuff. They were still performing in Ring Lane or other circuses that they'd actually started themselves. So I never was like there for that. I did spend a lot of time at Clown College. My mom worked at Clown College in Venice. Spent a lot of time there. I spent a lot of time at Hagenbeck Wallace, which was they produced all the props and all the design for all of Ringling Brothers shows. My mom's a painter and a muralist, so and she would build these crazy props and paint these crazy things. So I was around the circus, but not like in a performative way or anything like that. I was just like, I saw a lot of the behind the scenes. I was always around that. That was always a thing, but not like performing or anything. I missed that boat because my dad, honestly, it stopped with him because, he wouldn't get in the canon and, he wanted nothing to do with it. I was explaining this to somebody yesterday. Vic from Brand Crumbs, we were talking about, he's an entrepreneur. We had this meeting, or we just hung out, really, I guess to say. I did a series for him, and he's first generation or second generation, I forget. But I'm second generation American. My dad's first, so he was born here in the 40s, and so it's like America. He wants to play baseball. He wanted to be American more than he ever wanted to be Italian or pursue that. So it kind of died, not died, I should say, but he didn't want to pursue it, I should say. So
sure.
I didn't get that. I didn't get to do that because he stopped doing that. Not to say he didn't do that. He was a clown for a bit, but only a little bit. Yeah.
Sure. Well, I think it worked out for you. And I could speak from my taste buds perspective to say that we're glad that it didn't go that route and you're not a professional clown. So a lot of people listening may remember the times because we're the same age. I turned 41 this year, and so a lot of us were partying in our 20s around the same time and going to bars like Red Light, and they may not have made the connection that it was you, or maybe they don't even know what I'm talking about. But you really got your start in the Orlando culinary scene, to the best of my knowledge, with your food cart, Big Bruno's Bites. I want you to tell me a little bit about your experience. How was that, and how was it being out in front of Red Light all those nights?
So it was like an idea I pursued. Like that's all it was. So I had this idea. I wanted to pursue this food cart thing because of all my years working in New Jersey on the boardwalk. I was like, I just want to do something like cook some food that I cooked up there and do like this late night thing. And that led me to finding this cart on Craigslist in Boston. So it was on the Orlando Craigslist, but the guy was in Boston. He drove it down for me, and then I had it modified and put on a trailer. But it was kind of like just kind of pursuit of just wanting to do something. I was working in restaurants, I had bartended, and it was just kind of like I have to do something on my own and just to try it out. So that's where the cart came from, and the experience of it was fun. It was super fun. Like looking back on it, Like it sucked a lot of suck. Like it was just like tons of work, not a lot of money. It was just like trying to build something when I'll be honest, there wasn't really much in Orlando because if you've been here for as long as, we've been here for a long time. So
Yeah.
the landscape of Orlando has changed, I mean, so dramatically in, 20 years, even 10 years, like 10 years plus. I mean, the last time I operated the cart was, I think, 2012 when my daughter was born. And Red Light actually moved. That's why I kind of stopped when they moved to their Audubon Park location. But just, it was so different because you didn't really have a big food scene. You had a food scene, but it wasn't like it is today. So it was just like kind of like trying to make something happen and going out every night as much as possible without like going insane, right?
Right.
Because there's a lot of times I sat out there and made no money and just was like, this is what am I doing with my life? And I got to get a real job. I mean, that thought crossed my mind so many times. Like, but I just kept at it, and to me, it was just sort of like I just wanted to do something for myself. That was really the motivation, and I had a lot of fun. And that Red Light location was phenomenal. I mean, I love that location. It was so good. It was perfect. Not saying the new location isn't awesome, but that location and even the first location, if you can go that far back in Orlando, if you're familiar with that, those two were really special places. So
Where I actually don't know where those locations were. Can you share?
the second was the one on Bennett where I did Big Bruno's Bites. So
Okay, cool.
that's where that started, where some defunct, I don't know, restaurant is. I don't know, but it's behind where the Taco Bell is on 50 and
Okay.
on Bennett. So that's the second location. The first location was in Hannibal Square in Winter Park. So if you went, if you're familiar with Hannibal Square and you know where Mint Indian cuisine is, there's an Indian restaurant there. So to the right, there's a little door and there's a stairway up, and it was like legit an apartment. It used to be an apartment or something, and it was a bar. It was sick. It was so cool. It was super tiny, and like that was Red Light, and it was this tiny dark place. You could smoke in there, and like they were serving like Whitaker and like Delirium, and it was like, whoa, what is this? This is cool, and it was super like, the beers they were serving were like, whoa, it's like, what is this, craft beer?
Yeah, but we didn't even know what that meant back then, did we?
No. So they were definitely, one of the first, and that place was super cool and just very, very unique, very unique.
Nice. It reminds me of Underground Blues that used to be across the street from UCF, right?
I remember Underground Blues. Yes, Underground Blues was awesome. Yeah,
nice.
Absolutely.
Guys, if you want to get a taste of what Bruno was doing back then, you could still go on Yelp and like search Bruno's Bites or Big Bruno's Bites, and there's still Yelp reviews about his cheesesteaks and his fried Oreos. It's pretty crazy. Everything stays on the internet.
Yeah.
So pivoting a little bit as in following the growth of your career, you worked at some other restaurants that were, I guess we could obviously say, a little nicer than Big Bruno's Bites. You worked at Cask and Larder, an amazing restaurant that's still thriving here in Orlando. And you also were a consultant at a minimum at a Third Wave Cafe out in New Smyrna Beach, which is a fairly fine dining restaurant. Both have, fairly expensive menus. How did working at those restaurants before you opened Pizza Bruno, how did it shape your vision for Pizza Bruno?
So I would say, Third Wave had a big part of it, but before Third Wave, I was at Cask and I was on the opening team of Cask. And honestly, I went to work at Cask and Larder because I was about to have my first kid and I was doing the food cart, but the Bennett Road location of Red Light closed and they were still trying to open Audubon. And I didn't really have a location. There wasn't really many, like there wasn't options. It was like red light. That was it. Like that was the option you had to go as far as like places to go. I mean, it was Red Light and Will's, but like that was it. So I didn't really have an audience or I didn't have markets. There was nothing like there is today. So I was like, I gotta go get a job. And so I was on the opening team at Cask. I've known James and Julie forever. Larry, the head brewer at Ravenous Pig, is my best friend, one of my best friends. It's my Orlando experience is so dramatically altered by where I lived when I first moved here. So I moved into. Well, I didn't move in. I crashed on the couch of my friends who lived at UCF. It used, I think it's Knights Crossings.
Yeah, oh yeah.
It's
I used to live in Knights Crossing. Sure.
the one closer to the BP and McCullough
Yes.
area.
Yep. I've walked to the
They changed
BP.
the name.
Knights
Yeah,
Crossing. Yeah.
So a bunch of my friends from Sarasota. This is like going further back. How did I get to Cask and Larder and all this shit? But we moved. They moved into an apartment. Upstairs was a bunch of guys from Winter Park, and one of them was Larry, and a few other guys that I'm still good friends with today. But we happened to move below them, and we're like, "Hey, you guys like to party? Cool, we like to party." And we all still friends to this day. We're all going out to dinner on Saturday, but meeting those guys and like developing these friendships, like I stayed in Orlando because of it. But fast forward to Cask and Larder, they needed someone to shuck oysters. And so I was like, cool, I can do that. I ran a raw bar in Jersey for like 6 seasons. That was my favorite job. I love the raw bar. That was my jam. At the OG Steakhouse, I just loved working at the raw bar. It was the best gig. It was better than cutting fries or working the flat top or any of that crap. Like, give me the raw bar. I sit over ice and I shuck clams.
Nice.
Awesome. So they needed a oyster shucker for the raw bar. I was like, I'm your guy. So I stayed there. Opened, awesome. It was interesting how that opening went because it was just so hyped up, and Ravenous Pig had been very well regarded, obviously, and Cask was right down the street and totally different.
Let me jump in and clarify that it's the same owners. They had Ravenous Pig, and then they're opening Cask and Larder. Just that there's the connections to make sure the listener understands. Okay.
Yeah, same owners. So opening and working there was great. And I managed to, on the early part of Cask, there was 2 phases of Cask, mind you. I helped open, and then in that time period, I was there for about 6 months, and I was offered the job as the executive chef of Oblivion Tap Room. So that's part of that story as well. But opening Cask was awesome, fantastic food, and just a great environment. And I was like, this is exciting to be a part of that. But it also opened doors to other things, like Oblivion happened because of that, and they knew me from Big Bruno's Bites. But working there, then Oblivion, then back to Cask was all tied in because during that time at Oblivion, I was hired as a consultant for Third Wave, and I didn't love my job at Oblivion. I'll be totally honest; it was not for me. After a while, the hours were late. I didn't love the food, and I wanted to go back to cooking what I really like to cook, which was really cooking, not just burgers and fries. Like I really enjoyed cooking and doing different stuff, and just like the fine dining aspect of it all, just a little bit more technique driven cooking. That was what I like to do, not just not say it was not talent or technique involved, throwing burgers on grills, but just really wasn't doing it for me. And like I said, I didn't love the hours, and it just wasn't for me. So
sure,
open Cask, went to Oblivion, was there for about a year. In that time, I got asked to consult for Third Wave, and I was like, well, I can go there during the day, 9 to 1. I can leave New Smyrna at 12:30, get to Cask at 1:30, work from 1:30 till midnight. And I did that. And I did that for, I don't know, like 6-8 months. And it was awesome. And that was like, I just had so much fun. I had so much fun during that time because I was enjoying the idea of opening a new restaurant without any hindrance on, like, I had to do a certain thing. Like I did, but like I could just do what I wanted. And they wanted pizza and crepes. So we opened a crepe cafe first, which I've never made crepes professionally or anything like that. But I knew how to cook and I knew technique and flavors. So I was like, this is going to be cool. And it just like immediately went nuts. So albeit I hate making crepes. Just so annoying. Like I got really good at it, but oh man.
Yeah, it looks hard, that little super thin dough, right?
It can go really well or it can go really bad. Let's put it that way, because like you get somebody that doesn't make the batter right and it's lumpy and just like it becomes it's just sucks.
Okay.
So I will never open a crepe cafe if I can help it ever
Good to
again.
know.
That dream is not my dream.
Bruno's crepes is not on the docket.
I have a fantastic crepe recipe. I mean, it's the Third Wave crepe recipe, but oh man, it's just it can can kill you.
Yeah.
So we opened the breakfast cafe, and I was still working at nights at Cask, and I was surrounded by just like amazing chefs. So in that, I was still learning, I was still cooking great food, just excited about food. And Third Wave had asked me like, "Hey, would you come on board full time?" Because they like were like, "You need to be here." And I was like, "This is 2 hours of driving every single day." I lived in Winter Park, right off Parr Street, Parr and Formosa.
Sure,
So it
sure.
was hour there, hour back every day. But like, I didn't care. I just loved it. So I agreed to stay. And it was that point we were opening the PM side of things, which was wood fired pizza. And I really wanted to do the dinner side of things. I hated the breakfast. Like, I'm just not a breakfast cook. I'm not a brunch cook. Like, I can do it. It's just never been like, this is my passion. Like, I
Right.
just, not for me. So I was like, yeah, let's do it. I'll be here full time as, the executive chef and open, and we'll just do pizza. And for me, that was my moment of like, all right, we're going to make technique, quality pizza that for me, everywhere else I've worked that had pizza, it really wasn't the case. It was just like, throw some shit on here. It's cheap ingredients. That's why it never appealed to me.
Mhm.
Albeit I had to always do pizza at restaurants that I worked at because they found out I knew how to make pizza. And I
Right.
was just like, I don't want to be on pizza, dude. I want to be on, grill or saute or anything but pizza. But I could do it. So they're just like, here, go over here. And so that was always frustrating. So
Sure. How
I put
ironic.
my I put my frustrations aside, and I was like, well, shit, I can do some really good food, good pizza mainly. And like, all we had was a wood fired oven and a couple induction burners when we opened. And I just threw stuff at the wall and tried to figure it out and learn, read a lot of cookbooks, and just dove into pizza making really hard. And Third Wave was really, informative on just like how to make a, a whole restaurant work with like literally a wood fired oven. Like,
Wow. Yeah.
it's crazy. So I just did a lot of stuff, and looking back on it, I was like, what was I thinking? We were just putting out all this food with so little as far as equipment, but that place just blew up. And I tried to leave a couple times because it just got tiring. I was like working 15-hour days, 2 hours of driving. And every time I tried to leave, like legit, like the person they hired just like ghosted them within the week, or it was just like, I was like, fine, I'm staying. So I stayed there for a while, actually. I stayed there for quite a while and really enjoyed it. I really did
Well,
enjoy it.
take me to the point when you decided, all right, I have all this experience running an entire kitchen with a wood fired oven. I'm going to do my own thing. How did that transition to you doing your own thing?
Well, it came down to exactly that. It's like, I'm having a really good time making all this pizza. I'm sick of this drive. And also, to me, it was like, I'm cooking for tourists. Like,
Mhm.
that was what the predominant, uh, you know, the guest experience was. It was tourists, which, you can't build much of a relationship. We did have regulars, which were awesome, but the majority of the cooking was for tourists, and they wanted, here's the blackened fish tacos, and it was just like not my vibe. And I was like, dude, I really want to have a place where I could cook for neighborhood people or locals or people that are going to get behind it and support it and be like, oh, this is us. Like, this is a thing.
Sure.
And, I it kind of started looking for places. I had an investor interested, and literally like walking up and down Mills, door to door, going in places like, hey, will you sell this building to us? And seriously, I had,
Yeah.
and no one would sell any. They were just like, nah. And I did that for a little bit, and then finally just kind of gave up. Like, we just were like, this, I guess it's just not happening. And it's fine. It's what it was. And, I just kind of was like, all right, well, we'll wait a little longer. And then ended up, I actually came into a little money. I took out a mortgage on my house, and because they're like, hey, you could take out this. And I was like, well, maybe this is how I get into a restaurant.
Right.
And so I went through all this paperwork because I had a place lined up, and it just ended up falling through, which was on Mills. And I was like, all right, well, I tabled it and just waited around, and still working at Third Wave. I didn't let it go yet, but I was on Craigslist, and I was just like, this is what I do, right? I'll just like, I'm forever doing this. Still to this day, I put restaurant for sale or, look up stuff, Facebook Marketplace,
Yeah.
Craigslist, because you just really never know. Like, you just never know. So it's like, put it out there. And I found Pizza Bruno listed on Craigslist because at the time, second generation restaurants were just like immediately getting snapped up. Like, you couldn't get in. Only people they were really getting in were existing restaurateurs, which I find out happens now. Like, I get the first dibs
Yeah.
always.
Nice.
The agents are calling me before it's on the market every time. So at the time, I was like, okay, Craigslist, weird. Looked it up, must be a scam. Called them, oh, come check it out. It was the restaurant, and it's just nothing in it. It was empty.
Now,
But
hold on a sec. It was actually named Pizza Bruno?
no, it was
Okay.
Sopranos. It was Sopranos.
Okay.
So it was there for, geez, like 20 years. I ate there one time. I was dating a girl and she worked there as a server, and this was like 2005, I want to say. I remember eating there one time. I was like, I don't even know where the hell I was. I was like, where the
Yeah.
hell is this? I don't know
Right.
where the hell this is. Where am I? And
Right.
then I walked in. I was like, oh, I've been here before. And, I saw the place and, he was like, oh, here's a lease. And I looked it over. I was like, okay, cool. And I told him where I was working. And actually, it was like a Monday. And I usually don't work Mondays. At the time, I used to play indoor soccer Mondays. And I just happened to have to work that day because my second guy was out or something. And my server's like, hey, your new landlord is here. And I was like, what are you talking about? It's like, oh, they're at that table. Go say hi. And it was my landlord at the time and his mom. And he was like, hey, this is great. Do you want to come by the office and sign the lease tomorrow? I was like, sure. Because he was like, well, we had to come out here and make sure it wasn't bullshit.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, cool. So they came out, ate dinner, and they were like blown away at Third Wave. And they're like, come on by and sign the lease. It's yours. So that's how we got there. Yeah.
That's crazy. So you got your food cart from Craigslist. You got your freaking first restaurant off
Yeah.
Craigslist.
Mm-hmm.
Golly, what a story. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Bruno. That's so cool and just a testament to your work ethic and your relationships, in between these restaurants, keeping you afloat and also, teaching you really, forcing you to learn, right? You with the cookbooks and learning how to make pizza, which you weren't passionate about at the time. I'm going to pivot real quick and just let the listener know that this obviously is a podcast. Please jump on, if you like what you hear, please jump on your podcast platform, leave me a 5-star review and subscribe to my podcast because I have a bunch of other interviews on there and I'm going to be doing more. I interviewed Caleb Harold, CEO of Hawkers, Thomas Ward from Pig Floyd's, Scott Katroba from Poppy Smash Burger and Bullet Bar downtown. I interviewed Kelly Sen, the owner of Orlando Power Yoga. Plus, I have a lot of real estate related topics. Obviously, this is the Orlando real estate lifestyle. So I have a number of episodes devoted specifically to help you in your real estate journey, like how to buy a lake house, episodes 1 and 2. And of course, lifestyle topics. I'm kind of a health nut. I have tips about how to sleep. I have tips about, good eating habits, a good morning routine. So it's a really eclectic podcast. So make sure you jump on there and check it out. And don't forget about my real estate services. Of course, I am a listing specialist. Look, real estate transactions don't have to be hard or stressful. Hire the right pro, hire me. Be happy to help you. And again, a portion of all my commissions go to either a charity of your choosing or to the New Image Youth Center. Okay, enough of that shameless stuff. Back to Bruno. Dude, you're a big dog guy. How many dogs do you and your wife have?
So we have 6, and I love the dogs, but it's mainly my wife's love for dogs. So
Okay.
I'm just a supportive husband. I don't mind them. I love the dogs, but we have 6. Yeah.
Since we're not talking kids, we can ask an honest and frank question. Which dog is your favorite?
They're all pretty cool in their own ways, except probably Birdie, the demon dog. She's like my least favorite, but whatever. I don't know. It's hard to say. I think probably Rowdy. Rowdy is probably my favorite. And I was like, oh man, another one. And he was like a rescue and but he's just like the best dog. He's so funny. He's got dwarfism, and we rescued him from a breeder that was going to kill him. So, yeah, so somebody found out he was going to get killed, and they took him, and then we rescued him from them. And he's just a ham. He's just a funny dude, just a funny guy. Yeah.
Well, I've had 2 dogs in my life that I personally rescued, so I appreciate you going that path with Rowdy. I want to know, though, I want to share with the listener out there my personal connection to your restaurant from way back in the day. I used to live 2 or 3 blocks from your restaurant on Curry Ford. We could walk to your restaurant, and one day I was attempting to call in an order way early on, and the phone wasn't working or whatever. It was weird. I go in a few weeks later, I'm standing at the bar, I'm having a drink while I'm waiting for my pizza or waiting to get my seat or whatever it was. And I'm chatting with the bartender. I'm like, what happened to your phone service? Like, you guys don't take calls anymore? It's a pizza place, we didn't understand your passion and vision at the time as a layman person who wanted to eat pizza. And she's like, dude, Bruno was just so busy, and we were so popular that he just ripped the phone cord out of the wall one night because we had so many call-in orders. Take yourself back to that evening and tell me the story about you ripping that phone off.
So it just was overwhelming. It was, I never wanted it to be a call-in place. I was like, yeah, we'll do it. We had a phone at the start, and this was I want to say the first 2 weeks we opened, legit. It was within the first week or two. And I remember early on, I'm sitting there expediting from the inside of the restaurant, and the phone was to my right, and it just wouldn't stop, man. It wouldn't stop ringing. And my buddy George, rest in peace, George. Love George. He was such a huge help in the early days, and he's one of those guys that lived upstairs from us at UCF, right?
Yeah.
George was there, man. But he's on the phone. He's super stressed out. This guy he's got tons of hospitality experience. He's like, this phone won't stop, and he's trying to deal with guests and give them good service. And I remember just being like, enough. And I just was took it off the wall, threw it. I was like, we're done. We're done with phones forever. I don't care. I just don't care, at all. It's over with. And we threw it in the trash, didn't look back until legitimately COVID. COVID is I had to call the phone company. I was like, we need a phone. We need a phone line. We just don't have one, And they were just like, what do you mean? I'm like, did you just open? I was like, oh, here for 4 years, we don't have a phone. I threw it away. Do we still have a phone line? So it just, it was at the time just me wanting to focus on the first impressions, no matter what, because also 90% of the complaints were call-ins, straight up. This is wrong. You don't know what you're doing. This shit sucks. It's burnt. It's this, it's that. And I'm just like, fuck this, man. Screw that, dude.
I get it. And to me, I respect that. And the way you framed it makes a lot of sense. And to me, it's one of the reasons you're so successful is because your commitment to quality. And I remember I tried to order something to go recently, and the server's like, I'm sorry, we don't offer that to go. It's only dine-in. I'm like, what are you talking about? And they're like, yeah, well, Bruno decided that he wants to make sure you have the best experience. And if you walk away with this food, the way it sits in the box, and depending on how far you're going, by the time you get home, it's not going to be what he wants you to experience. And instead of being upset about that, I was like, I was blown away. I'm like, that is so cool. And I've never heard of that before. I mean, that's great.
I think it's just it's hard, especially when you give a shit about what you do, to be like, yeah, it's cool, man. Just throw it in a box and let it steam and lose all the characteristics that made it good. And then you're going to get it and you'll be like, well, this isn't as good as they made it out to be. So I'm upset. It wasn't worth the value, or wasn't worth the cost. I'm never going to go back because they lied to me. And it's like, that's not true. None of that is true, actually. In fact, it's the opposite. But, it's just hard to communicate that to some guests. Some guests are totally cool with it. They're like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And for instance, if you do fried food to go, it's going to suck.
Yeah.
It's just really going to suck. So it's you just have to maybe stand your ground on that and be like, hey, it only is good in-house, so we're only serving it in-house. And that's cool too. I don't care. I'm fine with that.
Well, it is. And it helps incentivize people to come in. I think your average client who you want to be coming in your restaurant is the type of person that would be smart enough to understand that. right? Like as a
Yeah.
baseline. Speaking of the food quality and so forth, you have a special type of pizza. I mean, I'll just say, looking at it, tasting it, it's not your New York style pizza. It's not your deep dish. It's kind of its own thing, and it's described on your website as Neapolitan
Mm-hmm.
Neapolitan style pizza. What is that? What is Neapolitan style pizza?
So true Neapolitan pizza, most people would hate. They would say it's, unless you've had it and understand what you're getting. Neapolitan pizza is made with double O flour, which makes it very soft and soggy. Hence why you get a knife and fork when you go to Italy and eat pizza, especially in Naples. You can't pick it up. So true Neapolitan pizza has to have certain things. Double O flour, has to have San Marzano tomatoes and mozzarella di bufala from Naples. Like, it all has to be from there, and it has to have the stamps, which like is cool, but ultimately it's a marketing thing and it's just a added tax.
Right.
Which doesn't make it bad. I'm not saying it makes it bad. It's just not what I want to do, and I don't dislike true Neapolitan pizza, but I wanted to do something maybe I wanted to eat. And as I've gone on with this pizza process, I started wood-fired pizza making at Third Wave in New Smyrna Beach as a true Neapolitan style, because that's what I was just kind of learning how to do. And then as time has evolved, I was just telling Vic last night while we are having this dinner, I was like, I just changed the dough again at Curry Ford like last month. It's like 38, 39 times we've changed the dough. Something I was keeping track, and then I just gave up. I was like, it's just because it's like now I tweak it to just kind of gain a little bit more ground in a certain area of the process.
Mhm.
And what we do with new Neapolitan pizza, it's Neapolitan, new Neapolitan. It was invented in like Brooklyn in like the 2000s. It's taking the wood-fired cooking, but applying like maybe chef-driven techniques, American ingredients, different oddball ingredients that you normally wouldn't get on Neapolitan pizza. So that's kind of what it is. And the dough can always be like double O only flour, but we use an American bread flour. We do natural leavening, so it's like sourdough. It's a layman's term of sourdough, but it's natural leavening, which is great for digestion, more flavor. It's just, I prefer it that way. And what you get is a pizza that you can actually pick up. It's got a bit of crispness. It's got a bit of body. That's what really makes the difference.
Well, thank you for describing that in a way that somebody who doesn't know squat about pizza dough can understand.
Yeah.
Now, you have a second location that's already open in College Park, and you
Mhm.
have the one in Maitland that's going to be open in July, hopefully. Are all those locations serving the same style of pizza?
No.
No. Okay.
So College Park does a totally different style of pizza than Curry Ford. It's what I call South New Jersey style pizza. So it's like a little ode to my heart as far as what I really enjoy eating.
Right.
I was gonna do wood-fired pizza at Curry or College Park, but I just kind of was there, and I was like, nah, I'm gonna do what I want, and I want to do this different style of pizza. And it's so good. It's just so good. I had it yesterday. I had a slice yesterday, and I was like, damn, dude, this is really good. So there, it's a little different. There, I highly recommend getting pizza to go, which I'd say opposite of Curry Ford.
Right.
It performs extremely well in a box. It's actually built for that kind of environment, so it's a lot more fat, uh, different hydration levels, stuff like that. So it's kind of built for a to-go style of pizza, and it's cooked at a lower temperature, so it's a bit drier, which is good. But I just love it. It's so good. It's so good. So it has, it's a bigger pizza. So we do 16-inch, we do 18-inch pies now. It's just awesome. It's just nostalgia. I had a slice yesterday, and I was like, I'm not on the boardwalk, but I'm there on the boardwalk. So it's just hitting all the tones. So I know I'm doing something right. If I'm like saying, well, now I don't have to travel to eat something I really like from a place that's really good, like, I've done well. So, yeah.
It doesn't surprise me that you are providing a high quality product there. How about the new location in Maitland? Is it going to be the Neapolitan? Is it going to be the
Mhm.
South Jersey? What's it going to be?
It's going to be the wood fired, like Curry Ford.
Okay.
That was kind of like the feeling I got when I walked in the space, I was like, and I think they also kind of requested kind of that.
Ah,
And I think it would just go so well with how the space is, and just how I just think it'll fit very well. So we're gonna do our traditional kind of curry forward new Neapolitan style pizza. It's gonna be a pretty reduced menu because we don't have a lot of space. So we're just gonna kind of work with what we have and
it's
just
a
kind of play
it's a
some
market
hits.
it's a market concept there, correct? In at the Maitland
N-
location, or
No, it's not like it's not a hall. It's
okay,
not a food hall. There's a hallway between the spaces, right? But each individual, and it's like its own individual entity in each bay.
okay,
So while it's a communal hallway, it's in each individual entity within. So we have control of our space. We have a separate, POS, all that stuff. So each space is going to provide their own experience how they want to provide it, if that makes sense.
it does. And where in Maitland is that?
It's going to be on the corner of Horatio and Howell Branch.
Okay.
Uh, or Horatio and Howell Branch is the same road. 1792 and Horatio on what would be the southeast corner, or if you're familiar with the area where the McDonald's is,
Uh-huh.
it's on that corner.
Okay.
So it's right there, right by Blackbird Comics, and Packwood is the cross street, which is nice. It's like a little cut through, which is cool.
Nice. Well, I wish you the greatest of successes there. Um, you know, you and I are both family men. I have 3 little kids. You have a daughter, and you mentioned your wife earlier, how supporting she is. And I love going into your Curry Ford location, and at least back in the day, I saw lots of hand-drawn pictures from your daughter and pictures of you and your family. So I want to understand, like, what does family mean to you, and how have you been able to open 2 restaurants and have some other concepts that have opened and closed, and you're opening at their location. How were you able to do that and then still maintain, the family environment that you have? Because I'm assuming you're just ultra busy.
Yes. I mean, ultra busy, yes, but what I've learned is something I didn't understand early on is what's called boundaries.
Mhm.
So I through some, I would say, through some pain and some kind of not great situations, I learned that I had an issue in the past with putting external things ahead of things that really matter. And what really matters is my wife, my daughter, my health. All these things are more important than everything else, because if I don't have any of those, legitimately nothing else matters,
Yep.
because the business isn't going to take care of me if I, like, get sick or when I'm older or whatever the fuck. Like, yeah, financially, sure, maybe, but those relationships within my family and how I treat those people closest to me and where I put them in my life ultimately, make me better, because you know, I in the past put work, the need to succeed, whatever, the drive, that's the utmost importance in front of them. And
Mhm.
it really, it got to a point that you know, I guess those situations happen where, somebody decides like enough's enough. And for me, I was left like dumbfounded, like, what do you mean? Like, I'm doing this for us. And it's like, well, that's not love, or that's not really, having a relationship. That's bullshit. It's
Yeah.
all bullshit. So for me, I had to learn a hard lesson, and I'm thankful I did, because I really had to reassess my priorities, and what is important. What's important to me is like my daughter, my wife, my well-being, but they're the most important people, and the businesses are important, but they're going to be fine. The businesses will be fine. I have good teams, and I have good management, and that's my biggest thing, is that through that process I had to learn that I can't be you know involved in everything all the time and make sure it's always 100% perfect, because I was going crazy. I was driving everybody else around me crazy and pushing them away in the same breath. So what I try to do now and say, yes, while I am busy, but I'm also busy doing things that help me have more time with my family, have
Right.
more time for myself, and give me a bit of peace of mind. Because, like, I can't stand at the restaurant 16 hours a day. And that doesn't do anybody any good,
No.
and it makes people, especially, I didn't realize this, what I was doing is that, people don't feel great if you don't trust them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just been a lesson learned. And now, like I said, my focus is on the right people, the right teams, and helping coach and develop them to be more effective, efficient, feel more empowered to make the right choices. And knowing that I have, support for them. So, I can be 100% for my family,
Yeah.
and that's super important, man.
It is.
So,
And
yeah.
I love the management style that you alluded to, which is having the trust for your team and the empowerment that that gives them. Because if you're a hawk over their shoulder all the time, they might, Bruno doesn't trust me, and they're not going to perform at their best, and they're not going to be empowered to think on their feet, maybe be creative in situations that they have to be. So, and on that same vein, Bruno, I want to know, and I'm going to make this our last question.
Mhm.
There's listeners out there that are aspiring chefs and certainly entrepreneurs. What's some advice? What comes to your mind if I was that person who was just getting out of culinary school and I was an aspiring chef or entrepreneur? What's some advice you could give to me in that scenario?
Um, so I would say, and mind you, I had never really thought about what it would be like to be in the position I'm in now,
Hmm.
like as a culinary school graduate or a chef. So if you ever have that inclination, I highly recommend you ask owners the truth of it. Like, what's it really like?
Yeah.
Or what's it, you know, talk to the people that you respect, that you see or are successful and have a bit of quality of life, and say, well, how do you do it? What are you doing to make this work for you? Because I, luckily enough, had some really poor examples in my life of how to operate businesses,
Mhm.
and they just seem so miserable, and I would just say, if you're thinking about doing something or pursuing something, ask yourself the real question of, if you think you know everything and you believe that, you're gonna fucking fail.
Yeah.
Sorry, like you really are. Um, I had to learn so much that was so outside of my comfort zone, that was just like, I don't, why would I never was taught these things. So
Mm.
having to be uncomfortable and being like okay with not knowing things is, I think, an ego check for a lot of people, because especially in the chef world,
Yeah.
a lot of egos, a lot of like, I know more than you, and it's can lead you to some, difficult situations if you're not willing to check that. But long and short of it, if you really have that desire to open your own place, talk to owners. Talk to owners that you see like, hey, they're doing it right. They'll tell you. They will. I mean, I will gladly answer any questions. Like, you have a question about something? Absolutely, man. I'll tell you anything you want to know. Like cooking, most cooks are probably, you're probably pretty good. That's fine. But it's the other stuff you really have to learn.
That's great. And what I'm hearing is create a network, talk to other people, put yourself in situations that force growth. You said
Hmm.
the situations, if we stay in our comfort zone our whole lives, we'll never grow. It,
Yep.
it's just like going to the gym. Like if you're not pushing yourself, your muscles aren't going to break down and grow. If you're not pushing yourself professionally or in the world of education or whatever your pursuits are, you're missing out on growth. And then you could go from a food truck to open up your third pizza restaurant if you do that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and to your point, it's like, my one piece of advice I would say is, you can't cook yourself out of every problem. You really can't. And you can't work yourself out of every problem,
Yeah,
because that's something I did not know.
right.
So, yes, yes.
That's great. Work-life balance is what I'm hearing. And Bruno, this has been great. We met a couple times before this, but I'm really starting. I'm getting to know you, who you are as a person. I think the listener out there understands you much better and can now see and understand why the pizza you produce is, for me, the best in Orlando, and certainly, arguably, it's on the
Thank you.
list with anybody. You're very welcome. You deserve that. So I want to remind the listener, the new Maitland location over there in Maitland off of 1792 is opening hopefully in July. It's very close. I'm going to include Bruno's websites, pizzabruno.fl.com. I'm going to provide a link to his catering service as well, so they can bring that wood fire oven out to your business or your house or your party or wherever. And so jump on there and find that information. I'll put his IG handle on there as well. Again, that's going to be on the episode description on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I'm on every podcast platform that can exist. And while you're there, you might as well jot down my cell phone, shoot me a text, and hit me up when it's your time to make a real estate decision. I'm a listing specialist. I have an entire episode on my podcast catalog about selling your home fast at the highest price, utilizing something called the auction effect, where we price the home aggressively, we stage it, we get you out of town for the weekend, we get everybody in there, and we get multiple offers, and you have that thing under contract within the first weekend, and you take yourself a little mini vacation that weekend. It's awesome. That's the way to do it. Find me anywhere online. Phil Kruse, that's Kruse with a K, Kruse. Throw me in Google, put the words real estate, put the words Orlando on there. You're not going to find a bigger Orlando advocate than me. And a portion of all my commissions go to charity. That's huge. And I have episodes about the different charities in Orlando, if you want to get involved there. And follow 5-star review, follow me. My podcast episodes drop every Monday morning, including this one that you're listening to now. And copy the link, send it to a friend. That means you could just send it to them via text, post it on social media. That would help me out a lot. That's enough of those plugs. Bruno, you're a busy man. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Anytime. It was a good time. Thank you.
It was a great time, as always, with these interviews. I love it. And for the listener out there, always know that your best life in Orlando is within reach. Keep embracing every moment. Cheers.